Hello, everyone. Welcome to God Roll Radio, a ForcedToWipe production. My name is Saxon, but you can call me Sax. Joining me tonight, I have two lovely gentlemen who are no strangers to all things Destiny. First, we have our resident hunter main, though he's been working this week to change that a little bit. Luke, aka Bryptic, how you doing, man?
Pretty good, man. Excited to be here and talk some Destiny stuff with this new season. I'm pretty excited. There's a lot of new
Yeah,
stuff, so
it feels weird to be excited about Destiny
yeah,
stuff
it
and to hear
does.
you're excited about it. So
Yeah,
it's always
exactly.
good. And last but not least, we have our Warlock representation for the evening, Spartan. How's it going, man?
It's going good. Similarly,
Good.
looking forward to chatting about Bungie being on top of things for the first
I
time
know.
in a little while.
Well, honestly, we'll just get right into it. So, just for anyone who, maybe you're subscribed to the podcast, you're like, this sounds a little different, or I thought this was ForcedToPod. This is going out on the same podcast feed on all of our sites. However, little timely thing, and we talked about it on our last episode of the pod that we were going to slide in a full Destiny related podcast to kind of fill the gap. Heather and I we are going to Europe, leaving here in just a few days. And so probably when you're listening to this, I will be on a flight heading on over. So we just wanted to fill the gap. And it was the whole goal of the podcast just to talk about things that are timely, things that are on our mind. And right now, Destiny is on our mind. So ForcedToWipe started as a Destiny and continues to be a Destiny clan. And so, though we don't talk about it as much on the normal podcast, we do sprinkle it in every now and then. Wanted to do a podcast episode that was fully dedicated to it. So, hopefully, you guys are good with that. If not, you can click off now. But all we're talking about tonight's Destiny. So, buckle in, and here we go. So, boys, I wanted to talk tonight. I want to start. I have a few topics here, but they're all about this season and just our relationship with Destiny right now. And so, I want to start. And talk about how Bungie's raid and dungeon team, they just continues to cook. They continue to cook over and over again. You boys joined me as we were trying to take down the dungeon, take down the corrupted puppeteer. I'm not sure if we've got confirmation if that is for sure Atrax or not. However, we were trying to do it on contest mode. So I just want to get your guys' feel. I can speak about it at the end, but Luke, what was your thoughts? How are you feeling with the contest mode experience for a dungeon? First time Bungie's done that. What were your thoughts on that?
So first off, I would say that I was really impressed going into us doing contest. I wasn't really expecting a whole lot with like a new dungeon, but when they announced, contest mode, I started getting excited for it. And once we actually got in there, I was like, oh wow, this is like doing a day one raid, but with two other guys as opposed to five other guys. I thought that the actual difficulty of the contest felt amazing. It felt like a real challenge for the first time since Salvation's Edge day one, but it was so much more fun than Salvation's Edge. I think that, like you said, their raid and dungeon team continue to put out incredible content. And for me, and I think really a lot of Destiny players, when there is a good dungeon that comes out or a good raid, that everybody gets hyped for it. I know they say that only like 1% or 2% of people have completed a raid in Destiny 2, but I mean, the majority of people that are playing Destiny 2 now are doing raids, are doing dungeons with LFG, with, their clans, whoever. And I don't know, I feel like it gives, when they do this, it brings like a breath of life to the game again. Because as you know, Sax, like I was kind of dropping off Destiny wise after Final Shape. I was like, what's the point? Doesn't really, I didn't even buy the season pass. I did end up getting it, even though I was like, what is going on with this? Do I need it? So as for the actual day one like experience that I had with you guys, it was, I think, the most fun day one thing that we've done for me. We did Root of Nightmares and Salvation's Edge together, but this was so much more fun less stressful. I felt like the difficulty was toned perfectly for what we were doing, where it was like hard enough to where you really had to be on top of what you were doing, but there was enough less difficulty in certain spots to where you could run what you wanted to run for damage or whatever. And I don't know, I think that it really has given Destiny a breath of life, and it makes me a lot more hopeful because, all the stuff with Bungie after Final Shape really kind of put a downer on the game and, just its future. But this season and this new dungeon really has made me feel excited for Destiny, and it's been a while since I felt that way. So
yeah, to your point, I just did a quick look while you're sharing your feelings there. So we had June 2024. We hit peak players at one point. 300. This just on Steam, so I don't know what the other platforms hit. 314,000 players, a little north of that, and it dropped off dramatically, right? So July was 100K, 63K in August, 41K maximum in September. Which is a normal trend, right? Like I'm not sitting here doom and gloom. That's just kind of how it goes. Jumping up at the beginning of the season up to 89,000. That's pretty impressive. And usually you see a big bump like that when it comes to full raids, right? People getting really excited for that, or maybe it's new story content, or even the returning raids. You'd see big jumps there because people nostalgia kicks in, whatever it may be. So seeing something fully unique in the contest mode dungeon, I think that was really effective for that. So Spartan, I want to get your thoughts. How did this contest experience, how did that compare to other ones that you've had in the past? We've done quite a few now together, and I just wanted to kind of get your opinion on it.
Yeah, I've just been nodding my head here in the background. No, I agree with a lot of what you said, Bryptic. I think, so I'll start with, as usual, like you already said, the Bungie's raid and dungeon team is one of the three portions of the studio that I think never really have too big of a mess up, and that'd be the raid and dungeon team, the art team, and the music team. So it's good to see that trend continue, I guess. As far as contest mode, I really hope they keep doing it for future dungeons because I thought it was really fun. I felt like the difficulty was maybe a little bit easier than Crota's day one when it relaunched in Destiny 2. It felt similar, but a lot better because that raid in general, just it's a really old raid, so they did what they could to make it better, but I felt like a lot of the mechanics in the new dungeon were enough different from Deepstone Crypt to feel new, even if they're kind of sort of the same thematically, at least. So far as in comparison to previous day ones, I've done Root of Nightmares, Crota, and Salvation's Edge. Root of Nightmares was the first day one I ever did, and the first one I ever completed all the way on a day one. So I'll always remember that fondly.
Twice, right? We ran it back twice, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that was a great time.
So, I'll always remember that one fondly. Even if the raid itself hasn't held up as well since then. Just being, generally seen as too easy and just very ad clear heavy type stuff. Salvation's Edge was fun the first time through, but man, is it long. I think that's the biggest thing replayability wise. With a dungeon, I feel like I can play a dungeon over and over and over, not really get tired of it because it's just short enough. Whereas Salvation's Edge is the opposite of that, where it's so long that it feels like it's hard to get people together to want to play it. And when you do get people together to play it, it takes up an entire afternoon.
Yeah.
So, yeah, also there's the whole, like you said, 3-man dungeons are easier to find. It's a lot easier to find 2 other people to play with than it is to find 5.
Yeah,
I
would definitely agree with all that. I think the there's a whole lot, right, that plays into the difference between this experience and the Salvation's Edge. I do agree
Yeah.
with you. I think the Crota thing was I think that's a really good comparison. Just a retrospective on that. I felt like we had a really locked in team for Crota. But that damage check at Crota, we hadn't really used swords in a long time, just as a community. They had been trying to bring back swords and trying to do that, and we just kind of weren't in that place, that mindset. So we got there really close. I still, here on the YouTube channel, actually have all of our clears, and then I have included our closest Crota clear where we essentially traded, but we didn't get the oversoul and it wiped us. At the same time. So that was a little disappointing, but I will say for me, obviously Root of Nightmares has clearing it. That was such a momentous thing that felt so good. Crota was right after it. Was very different from a difficulties perspective compared to Root of Nightmares, but I almost felt more proud of how we played with Crota. And then when we came into Salvation's Edge, we got through the first 3 encounters, and then we didn't end up really going on after that. We had played enough, we had worked hard enough, and kind of hit the wall doing that. And so I kind of found ourselves, kind of found ourselves in a place where, there were levels to it. There were different people who were in different headspaces and things with everything. And so I just feel like what we got out of it, I felt very good about beating that first boss, Salvation's Edge. There were a lot of teams who couldn't even do that. Mean, we had teams inside our clan who maybe got a little further. We had teams inside the clan or inside the server that, didn't get past first encounter. And it is what it is. It's one of those things where, the team that we had a lot of practice together. We had gone through and played through Pantheon each week and, in prep for it and stuff.
Oh man,
and,
Pantheon.
I miss Pantheon so much. I love Pantheon.
I think we're, knock on wood, I think we're getting something similar. They haven't exactly said what it was going to be, but some sort of, retrospective with raid and dungeon encounters and stuff like that towards the end of the year, which would be awesome. But I know coming out of Pantheon, I felt very confident in that. And so I still feel like we had a good team, good balance there. We were all kind of, pretty locked in and stuff, but just kind of kicked our butts, then it was what it was.
I would never call Salvation's Edge a bad raid. I think it is a great, capstone raid on the, the 10 years of Destiny, whatever. And it deserved to be long and difficult.
Yeah.
Because of that, it just makes it, now what, when did it come out? A year later?
As far as are you talking about
just contest mode? I was just saying Salvation's Edge, now half a year later or whatever.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yep.
It makes the replayability difficult.
Yeah.
But, kind of on the flip side of that, I like that they went with it.
Yep.
Despite that.
I think that Salvation's Edge kind of kicked my ass a little bit.
Yeah.
I think I invested way too much in getting people through it and got so burnt out on the game because of how long and tedious some of those encounters are, where you're couple hours to complete a raid, get a couple new people through it. That's great. But Salvation's Edge were over the course of 2 nights, 3 nights because of not being able to get people through. And I was just looking here. My fastest
doing
Salvation's
differential
Edge
equations
is still 2 hours and 48 minutes. on raid report. So it was,
let me see what mine
and
is.
it does like you said, Spartan,
3
I think it
hours.
absolutely deserves to be. It's like their capstone project. Like it's take a little bit of everything, best encounters, hardest difficulty, puzzles, all of that. But I think that coming from that and then going into this dungeon as the next day one type thing, it felt so much better. Like just it was less stressful, it was more fun, the mechanics were easy to understand. But like not hard enough, but because of the difficulty of the content, it just, I don't know. To me, it felt great.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about like, you know, the Sherpaing experience. So that's a good segue. You know, I was just looking at our raid reports there, right? So for anyone who doesn't know, maybe you're outside, maybe you don't play Destiny, you're just listening to this, and to that I would say thank you, but I don't know why you're here. I appreciate it, but I'm not sure why. But you know, we're sitting here. So the idea, just the quickest TLDR. So the idea, um, you know, 4 raids and dungeons, right? Dungeons, three player activities, in-game activities, you know, so this isn't something that you're going to boot up Destiny today and go typically, unless you're with 2 people that you're really dedicated with or something of that sort, you know, and so, raid being 6 people together. And so I've said this on the main podcast a couple of times, but not everyone has the the ability or the willingness to boss around 5 other individuals in a nice way to make them want to keep coming back. And I try my best to do that, but the ability to kind of wrangle, you know, 5 other people to get a total of 6 people through these activities. And so we've kind of built our server, you know, built our Discord server. We built our clan on that. We have a lot of people in here that, you know, whether it was Luke or Spartan or someone else helping myself or Hala or different people in our clan run these Sherpas experience, you know, and then I'll have message, you know, I have many DMs with people who are in the server, people I'll probably never talk to again, who say, hey man, I just appreciate the way that, you know, you made sure we knew what we were doing or teaching and doing that. So that's kind of a tent or like a you know, a flag that we've planted in the ground. And a tenet of our clan is like, hey, we're here to help in any way we can, you know, and to do that. And so I remember, you know, when Salvation's Edge came out, I mean, you guys were privy to it. We were talking in our mod chats and everything. And I was just like, boys, like, I don't know how we're going to be able to get people through this. And it wasn't that we couldn't do the individual encounters, but it's, Luke, what you were just saying. It's like, man, you know, so not only are we saying, hey, we're going to do this as a teaching run, but we're having trouble finding enough people who already know the raid that want to learn, you know, who want to help learners and do that. And so, I mean, I know for sure I was feeling burnt out. I'm talking to Heather about it and she's like, I don't really care. You know, she's like, this is way more important to you than, you know, she never said that, but like, I can just tell, you know, it's just one of those things where she's like, well, no one's paying you to do this, right? And it's just like out of the goodness of our hearts, like we're trying to do this. And it's because I know how effective, I know how good Destiny is. I understand, and I know it's been a big part of my life, and I know it has for you guys too. And it's one of those things like I want that feeling of like when we're playing Salvation's Edge and we kill the witness with someone who without our crew probably would have never done that. Like knowing that. And not for a lack of skill or anything of that sort. I'm just saying like the ability to join a team and to persist and to keep their calm and keep the patience. You know what I mean? Like that's what comes to mind. And so I think for me, when we were in the contest mode of Vesper's host and we're running through, I knew it was tough, but it was very similar to Crota, like Spartan alluded to earlier, where I was like, okay, we can teach this. Like we can get through this.
Yeah.
It builds on the mechanics from past encounters well enough that I can say, hey, you're going to be scanner for this entire dungeon and you're going to know what to do so that when I have to make a call out in the middle of it, they're not going to feel lost, right? Whereas with Salvation's Edge, for example, you know, just using it a lot, since it was the last contest experience and the last real Sherpaing experience that we had, we get to the fourth encounter and it's like, okay, I need you to dump every ounce of anything I've taught you up to this point, and I'm going to spill my thesis now, and maybe you'll understand it. And I was talking on the main podcast last week. I was just like, you have to understand geometric ideologies, and like, okay, do you understand that a cylinder is a circle and a square put together? Nope. Well, now you do. And if you've never heard that before, I need you to be able to lock
Figure
that
it
in
out.
and things of that sort.
Yeah.
And so, and it just, I guess to wrap up my ramblings, is just like the feeling for me from a Sherpa experience, right? It is easier to pull 3 people together, but with the nature of a dungeon, in theory, you could do it with 2. Like if you're okay with it taking a little longer, maybe damage phases, a couple more damage phases, you can do it with 2 people, and it makes it really, really efficient for us. So
I was just wanting to throw in there, I think that's one of the biggest differences when it comes to Sherpaing, like this dungeon versus something like a tough raid like Salvation's Edge. Is there's no time limit on the encounters. You can take your time if you mess up, but there's also timed parts where it's like, DPSing a boss or something like that. I just feel like it's a great mix of what we get from raids and then how a dungeon functions. And it just has made me had a ton of fun with it.
Yeah, dungeons are just in general a great like in between stepping stone, I guess you could call it, between like strikes and other PvE activities in Destiny and full on raids. Like you said, they're a lot easier to teach because they typically stick to one-ish themes sort of throughout the dungeon. Whereas a lot of the raids tend to have you can think of like Root of Nightmares. You've got the whole planet section, which is completely different from, whatever other section of the raid, right? Whereas oftentimes in dungeons, it's a similar mechanic for a lot of the dungeon, which makes it easier. And then also, like you said, they're a lot easier to low man than a raid. And you don't have to get as many people together, even if you want to do a full team. So, it makes sense for somebody newer in Destiny to take them through a couple of dungeons before throwing like, hey, let's do a raid, right?
It really felt like they, at like the dungeon team or raid team, was like looking at a raid and they're like, how do we take a raid and put it into a dungeon but do it right? And I feel like they did that with Vesper, with the a little bit more complicated mechanics, but they're easy enough to learn. Like you said, Sax, like once you've done the first 2 encounters on one specific like operator or whatever it may be, whatever you're teaching, it's way easier for new people to like complete that. And they just, I don't know, it felt like they basically shrunk a raid and took the things that make raids annoying and hard and removed that part of it, which sure, it brings down the difficulty, but it's just, I don't know, it's fun at the end of the day.
Yeah,
I agree. I think we've probably talked about that part, quite a bit and stuff. But the one last thing I will say on the matter is, that was what I found so unique about contest mode for the dungeon, is because they added in the revive tokens. They added in some timers, and things that I thought they were just going to exist in the dungeon. I thought the first encounter's timer was going to exist, and that would have made it significantly harder to Sherpa, because it would have turned into a situation like, hey, I need you to keep up with me, right? So I don't know if you guys, I don't know what your experiences are or what your feelings are on doing the dungeon solo thing, things you've played around with. Obviously, I think we've all gone into, some of the different dungeons and stuff. So up to this point, I have solo flawless every dungeon. I've gone in, I've started some practice. It's going to take me some time to do this one just because I'm leaving. I'm leaving town. Right now is probably the time that if I wasn't leaving, I'd be going in and really, really practicing. But I've done the first encounter. I have that one down pretty well. That it's not a tough encounter. It's a classic dungeon opening encounter. The second encounter, I got through 2 damage phases. I think I just overextended in front of the boss when I was trying to do the suppressor today. Died. Just literally, I went from full health with overshields to dead instantaneously. So I think I just didn't take my classic piece of advice for that encounter, which is don't take balls to the face. I think I did, but I didn't even see it coming. To be honest with you, I haven't even thought through what the third encounter is going to look like. I figure why worry about it right now when I'm not going to have a ton of attempts into it. I know it's going to be a slog. So my main goal is just going to be try to go in there and try to find a way to solo it. But I need a lot of time. To just sit with it and do that. So, but let's move on now. So we've talked about the fact that we like the dungeon. Talked about the replayability of the dungeon. I wanted to go over some of the pieces of loot that we're chasing from the dungeon. So, from the replayability aspect, one thing that's really cool is, there are these embedded puzzles and things that are in there. So, if you were to clear it on contest mode, Icebreaker was a guaranteed drop. As the dungeon exotic, brought back from Destiny 1. I never had Icebreaker in D1. Didn't really play a ton of Destiny 1 in comparison, right? Like I have 300 hours in Destiny 1, but that's nothing compared to Destiny 2's time in there. So I don't have Icebreaker yet, so I can't really speak to this. Spartan, I know you have the most time with it, but Luke, I know you have also put time in. So Spartan, I want to get your thoughts. How are you feeling with Icebreaker? Did you play with it in D1? I know you played D1, but or if not, how is it feeling now? And what are your top level thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while, obviously, since Destiny 1. I don't remember if I had it unlocked. I know I've seen a lot of people play with it. The way it worked in Destiny 1 is it would just, on a timer, spawn ammo out of thin air, which is why a lot of people wanted it, because it got around the ammo limitations in PvP.
Mm-hmm.
Which it's kind of similar now, but I kind of like the new version more than that idea. No real surprise. I mean, they've been working on the game for so much longer now that surprise, they made a weapon better. But a couple things I like about the new one. One, the ammo refund isn't on a timer. It's based on how many enemies you kill. And the difficulty of the enemy changes how much ammo you get back. I think it's every 2 red bars you get 1 ammo. An orange bar will be 2 ammo, and a yellow bar will be, like a mini boss, will be 3 ammo back. If killed with another weapon. And then I also really like the, as the name would imply, the ice breaking aspect of it, causing ignitions on when you shatter targets. Now that stasis is a thing in the game and things can actually be frozen, I think that's super cool. And whether or not it's a bug, the fact that you can shoot just stasis crystals in the world and it just causes an ignition there is great. And I hope they keep it, even if it is a bug. But yeah, so far I have been enjoying using it. It's a great ad clear sniper, which is kind of weird to say. But having it now alongside the buffs that they just made to snipers to improve their critical hit damage on anything except bosses is pretty great. I've been using it a lot in Onslaught. So lots of enemies spawning in one spot. You hit one headshot, ignition, and they all die.
So it does ignite. So it does ignite even if they're not frozen.
Yeah.
If you hit a precision kill.
Okay. That's good to know. I didn't know that. I thought they had to be frozen, so I thought it was a little hindered in my mind, it was going to be a little hindered by that. So,
No, and
Luke, I know you.
non-precision hits are like Firefly. So it
Oh, okay.
explodes, but it's not as powerful as an
Oh, that's cool.
ignition.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Luke, you have it as well. You've had a little less time, but what are your top level thoughts on it?
Well, first I did use Icebreaker a lot in D1. In D1, I was pretty invested in D1 actually. There's actually a clip on my Twitter. It's one of my first posts on my Twitter of me hitting a collateral with Icebreaker in D1
Nice.
in
That's cool.
PvP in
You should pull
trials.
that back in the server.
I will. I'll find it. But you can just hear me on the mic. And I was like 17 or whatever at the time. Like, yeah. So really fond memories with Icebreaker, especially in PvP. As for how it feels in D2, I think the sound design on it is freaking awesome. It just feels good to shoot. I think that
Scream.
like like Spartan was saying, the fact that it's an ad clearing sniper feels really cool. So I've been going through the final shape campaign to unlock prismatic on my warlock and titan, and on my warlock I decided I'm going to throw around some stasis and mess around with icebreaker, and you just throw a cold snap grenade down and it chains 3-4 enemies, and then you just no scope with icebreaker and it clears all of them. It's pretty crazy how strong it feels in PvE. Like I haven't used it too much in PvP, maybe like 5 or 6 games in control. I know there's some type of weird bug. We were talking about this before we started the podcast, but Spartan, the flinch on icebreaker in PvP feels whack. I mean, it feels like you get sent not like straight up off the screen when you're scoped in, somebody hits you. So I don't know what that's about, but it feels really good when you do hit your shots. Feels sticky. The aim assist feels good. Overall, I think it's an awesome weapon, and it's really unique to D2 with its ammo economy. And so I really, really like it. I just haven't had as much experience with it that I'd like to before, like my final thoughts on it.
Sure. Now, was it solar in D1?
I am almost positive
so.
because
Okay.
it did have the perk where is it Firefly?
I think so.
I think or Dragonfly, whatever they called it in D1. If you got a headshot, it made things explode.
Okay. Yeah, that was one thing I was interested in, when they brought it back. I wasn't sure. I think the other sniper I might be getting mixed up was No Land Beyond. Isn't that, I think that was kinetic.
It's kinetic.
And it was primary,
bolt
wasn't
action.
It had unlimited ammo though.
Yeah.
Not that it didn't generate. It was just like a primary weapon.
Yeah.
So,
Primary. Yeah.
and it one-shotted in PvP. It was.
Yeah, that's crazy. So I think that's what I'm getting mixed up. So again, I don't know that I think I played with No Land Beyond, but I didn't ever play with Icebreaker in D1. But well, yeah, I look forward to getting it. I don't mind. Like, I actually look forward to getting runs in. So I do intend on getting my 3 runs in before we leave. So I'm gonna have to find a way to get on because we're recording another episode that's going to go live later on Tuesday night. So I got to figure all that out. So I got a lot of stuff I'm cooking up before we leave. So I cannot wait to leave though, so I can put it all behind me. I did want to talk just about, there are 4 weapons, 4 legendary weapons that came out with the dungeon. Now, we were discussing at one point, I'm not sure if you guys were there, but I was discussing with some people in the chat about, different dungeons and their loot pools, things of that sort. And this one is by far the most juiced we've ever had, which also feels fantastic. And so I don't know. I would be interested. I would love to sit down with someone who's on both the Raid and Dungeons team and then bridging the gap between the sandbox team, the weapon development team. And I would love to hear their philosophy, because there's been a change somewhere, right? Between Warlords and this, there's been a change. And so I would say that this loot pool is even more juice than Salvation's Edge loot pool is. And as far as how well rounded it is. And so I would assume that, say with Warlord's Ruin, they filled a couple of niches, a couple of little spaces that we didn't have before. Obviously, there was the introduction of the rocket sidearm. It is incredible. Indebted Kindness. Sorry, the name wasn't coming to me immediately. However, there was really only, you could have an assortment of first column perks, but you had to have Volt Shot in the second, to make that thing reach its full potential. But they have absolutely cooked with this one. So I would say the weakest weapon that we have is the ARC 600 RPM auto. This is VS Pyroelectric Propellent. However, it's still awesome. I love 600 RPMs. Gnawing Hunger has a special place in my heart. Summoner is a great 600 RPM auto rifle. And as they've started to get them updated with new perk pools, using all the different verbs and things in there, finding them really favorable. So one that I'm chasing, I know, is Attrition Orbs and Jolting Feedback. Love the synergy there between those. Now, have you guys gotten any interesting rolls of this Arc Auto, or are you guys still chasing it? Or do you not have any interest at all? What are your thoughts, Spartan?
I've got a PvP roll, which is just Fragile Focus Target Lock.
Okay.
Those are really the only two big PvP perks on the thing. I guess Kill Clip as well, and Onslaught. But I haven't really used it. I have an Attrition Orbs Onslaught roll that I think could be good. Haven't really gotten around to trying it. Been using Icebreaker in that slot most of the time. So, as for the rest of the dungeon weapons, I agree. Once again, art team going ham.
Yeah, I know.
Very cool.
They went crazy with it.
Finally have a light energy type area denial frame grenade launcher, which is cool.
Yeah. That one's coming up next. Luke, did you have any thoughts on this auto rifle here, or any interesting rolls on it?
I haven't played around with it too much. I've actually that slot has been locked in with Nation of Beasts this season. Don't know why. I've just been really enjoying it. So I haven't messed around with it. I have a couple rolls, but I don't really have too much to say on the auto rifle.
Sure. That's fair. One role that I've been using is Strategist and Onslaught. It's just the first one I got that was good enough to enhance, and I was playing around with it. So it feels good. It has an interesting the scope on it's interesting. It highlights all the enemies, but it highlights them like a light blue, which is interesting.
Oh, interesting.
That's cool. That's just really cool.
Just again an artistic decision that someone made. So nothing really too crazy there. The next one here, Spartan, you were kind of getting to it. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold tight. Well, let's talk about the fusion rifle real quick, because there's some really interesting rolls. Avoid Adaptive Fusion Rifle VS Gravitic Arrest. Like I said, it's another Void fusion for the season, with Zealot's Reward from Garden of Salvation getting its reprise as well. So I found it a little interesting that they went, multiple Void dropping in the same. However, there are some interesting perks here. First column, I see To the Pain, Under Pressure, Repulsor Brace, Demolitionist, Heating Up, and Unrelenting. And the second perk, or in the fourth column here, we got Withering Gaze, Closing Time, new perk of the season, Chain Reaction, Kickstart, Successful Warm Up, and Fragile Focus. So I've seen some footage, some different people playing around with some different roles there. I do have a couple of nice roles on there. I believe I have a Under Pressure Closing Time, which is really nice, very synergistic for PvP that I haven't touched quite yet. And then I do have I have another role. I'm having trouble remembering what's in the first. Maybe it's Under Pressure as well, but it's Chain Reaction in the second. And so things kind of go crazy with that. So I don't know if you guys have played around with that at all. I know none of us are really huge fusion rifle users. Obviously, Riptide goes hard, but And this is in the same slot as Icebreaker, so I'd understand if you haven't used it too much. But.
I actually did get a roll of that. There's because it's a farmable dungeon, just like going in there, I never really look at what I get, but
Sure.
I did play around. I got an under pressure kickstart, and I tried it in PvP, and it felt pretty disgusting. Like I was kind of cheating. Kickstart's really, really awesome perk, but it kind of forces you to play a certain way. I know me and Spartan actually had a weird like couple week run where we were just using fusion rifles in PvP. And we were crafting them and stuff. We're using Glaciocasm and what was the other one? Regardless, I started to kind of like fusion rifles again, and I'm excited to play around with more rolls of it. I just haven't gotten exactly what I want yet.
Yeah, Merciless, I think. The exotic fusion that you were using a bunch.
Yeah, Merciless was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
fun fusion.
I'm eager to see how Withering Gaze. So just for anyone who doesn't know what Withering Gaze is, aiming this weapon for a short period of time without firing grants the ability to weaken the next target. Timer resets after firing or when you stop aiming down sight. So the idea, and I know this is on a couple of a couple of sniper rifles. So it's kind of like no distractions. That kind of aim down sights there for a second and then being able to kind of proc that. Box breathing as well. I think those all kind of give you a similar effect with that. I do want to talk.
We know
what you say?
Do we know what level of weaken that perk is? Because that'll matter a lot.
15. I believe it's 15.
Okay, so it's the smaller. Yeah.
But still,
having that just... Because, we've seen this season already with grenade launchers weakening targets, how good it is to just have a special weapon that can just apply weaken whenever you want. So, I don't know for sure on this specific weapon, but I imagine it could be pretty good.
Find specifically just to make sure I'm not misspeaking on that, but I believe it's the lighter. I think if it was a full 30%, first off, I think that would
be ridiculous.
A break thing.
Yeah, so, overpowered.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident it's that 15% weaken. So moving on to the next item, and this is what you were alluding to earlier, Spartan, and this is really, I am happy when any weapon drops from this dungeon, which is so rare, because I'm going to look at it. I'm going to take a deeper view on it. We have the area denial frame, so the legendary Wither Horde type weapon called VS Velocity Baton, which is a sick name as well. This is void as well. And I think that's fine. It's the first one we're getting in the energy slot. Trying to lean in there. I wish one of the items.
Give me more void.
I wish one of them would have been solar. I guess that's where I'm at between the adaptive fusion and I don't know how long it's been since we've had a void adaptive fusion other than this one or vice versa. So the perks that they went with, maybe they were really wanting to lean in with that Withering Gaze and they're like, this is cool. However, it's been already kind of data mined that Withering Gaze is going to come on to Glaciocasm later this season. And with that, it has the slower charge time. So people are estimating that you may be able to just immediately proc Withering Gaze while you're charging Glaciocasm, which would be crazy. So you don't even have to do any difference there. So, but for Velocity Baton here, we got Repulsor Destabilizing, which will be a sick, that's a 1-2 combo there that a lot of people are looking for. But in that first perk column, we have Under Over, Unrelenting, Reverberation, which I've not played around with too much, Demolitionist, and Slick Draw. I still haven't found Bungie's still pushing it, and I feel like it's one of those things that could be a tweak or two away from pulling it, because the concept of using a weapon, let me read it here. Passively grants 100 handling, 0.95 times ready animation duration multiplier, 20% decreased auto aim cone size. a lot of that just means nothing, to most people. And that's not in the game. That's just community research. What in the game it shows significantly increases handling and significantly decreases target acquisition. For something like an area denial frame, that makes sense, right? Like you're not trying to, you're not having to completely track the targets, but it's still just a hard ask, right? Like anytime you have a perk that's gonna have a negative aspect to it, it's just tough to say, oh, I'm going to use this instead of something else. So have you guys gotten any awesome rolls of the Velocity Baton?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, in regards to Slick Draw, the biggest problem I have with perks like that and Gut Shot Straight is just that there's almost every single time there's a better perk in that column.
Yeah, that's fair.
That makes it not worth it.
Yeah.
Like I 100% agree that on a weapon like the Velocity Baton, your aim assist doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes perfect sense, but also you have Repulsor Brace in that column or Under Over, which is the role I'm looking for, Under Over Attrition Orbs. I haven't got it yet. The only one I have is Reverberation Bait and Switch, which is an interesting role. I want to try it, but the one I actively want from the dungeon is Under Over Attrition Orbs, because Attrition Orbs it's been around for a little while now, but most people just completely ignore it because on most weapons it doesn't do a whole lot when you can just put a what's it called mod on your helmet?
Siphon.
A siphon mod and do basically the same thing.
Yeah.
But it dealing sustained damage creates an orb of power. The thing that makes it good on Velocity Baton is that an area denial frame ticks damage really quickly. So you can theoretically get 2 or 3 orbs out of one hit, like one shot on an enemy.
I have a quick question about that, because I've never played with that perk, but I know a lot of people have been using it and talking about how good it is. On like, if you're doing like DPS on a boss and you hit it with like an attrition orbs weapon, like let's say this GL, do you just get the orb drop on you, like right then, or is it up on the
boss? It drops on the enemy.
The enemy, yeah.
Still though,
yeah.
That's really cool.
But I mean, you're mostly ad clearing with something like this. Yeah. And you're mostly ad clearing with something like this, so you're running around picking up everything anyways.
One thing I think will say about that though, Luke, the sorry to interrupt, Spartan, but the one thing that really does have a lot of play, and I see people using, is attrition orbs on a sword, because you're right there in front of them.
Yeah.
And so as you're doing really that, if you have any form of healing based on on your leg armor, throw a mod on there, better already, something of that sort, you could pick that orb up, but then obviously you're rebuffing all of your all of your
armor charges stuff.
Yeah. That's exactly right. I was just missing the words, but you're just getting those going, and your surges. That's the actual word I was looking for. Yep. So any weapon surges that you're doing. So
that's exactly why I asked. Yep. So that makes super sense. I would think that would be sick on a sword.
Mm-hmm.
To get one of those
for sure.
Yeah, it's anyway. Closing thoughts on the weapon. Cool. We finally have a light-based grenade area denial frame as opposed to the stasis one we had before.
Mm-hmm.
One per slot now, and I'm totally cool with multiple void weapons. Give me more void weapons. We've had tons of solar weapons the last 6 seasons, so
it's true. It's very true.
Yeah,
I always feel like void gets kind of left to the wayside a little bit in Destiny, at least in terms of weapons.
Yeah.
It's not true, but it feels that way.
Which queen was kind of crazy with
Void.
It felt so good.
Yeah, the season where was it grenade kills just procced volatile rounds on any void weapon you had?
Yep.
It made Ron contest mode super easy.
Yeah.
Well, some of the encounters at least.
Mm-hmm. That's the other thing that the area denial frames do really well is they they build up your light and dark transcendent energy very fast.
Yeah.
Which is why for most Guardians, when you're out there, if you're trying to do some sort of prismatic buildup, running Lost Signal from last season is bar none. It is the best weapon to get your darkness transcendence back. I mean, you just spray it into a crowd once or twice and it's completely filled up because every tick helps in that regard.
Mhm.
So I would say if you find yourself not knowing what to run in your top slot, your kinetic slot, and you're also on prismatic and you're trying to get transcendence up, run Lost Signal. It is sick. And you can do that as well. So I didn't even think about, it would be so funny to just run multiple for something like a Vault of Glass opening
Just two
encounter.
area denials.
Like
Yeah.
where you're just trying to trying to keep all the enemies away. Some sort of fully ad based thing. Especially we had like like an anti-barrier grenade launcher. It'd be so
that would
interesting
be
to see
so
like
much fun.
how that would play around. Luke, do you have
Yeah.
any thoughts on this weapon?
No, I haven't. I haven't really played around too much with special grenade launchers in PvE besides Mountaintop.
That's fair.
So it looks cool though. I will say that.
Yeah. It's always nice to see Bungie continuing to develop and play around with these ideas and things of that sort. So the last weapon that's coming from the dungeon, theoretically the best. Now it is the best in slot grenade launcher at this point. So rapid fire frames have the best total damage and DPS at this point, which typically indicates that it's going to get a nerf at some point. However, there are so few of them in the game, and there are so few of them with viable roles on them that I don't know that they'll touch it at this point. So the VS Chill Inhibitor heavy grenade launcher, it is a stasis grenade launcher with perks such as Cascade Point, Danger Zone, Rhyme Stealer, Attrition Orbs, Envious Arsenal, and Demolitionist in the first slot. Then we have Chill Clip, Bait and Switch, Surrounded, Chain Reaction, Explosive Light, and One for All in the second slot. Man, this is a juicer, boys.
Yeah, that's juiced.
And
I've been using mine a lot.
It feels so good. I really, really want a Cascade Point Bait and Switch. I think it's going to be sick to do that, especially with something like an Icebreaker, being able to, hit a couple of crits on there because you can proc. And I've never really looked into this, but basically, after scoring a kill or multiple precision hits within 5 seconds of each with a different weapon grants Cascade Point ready buff for 5 seconds. And so just being able to fire them off super fast is just very sick.
Yeah, I can actually speak to that role because it was the first role that I got dropped and I immediately enhanced it.
That's awesome.
And I will say it feels like absolutely disgusting to like hit a few sniper shots and then literally unload, because you already proc bait and switch from your sniper and primary, and then going to that and just it feels really, really good and it's super fun. It's just really fun weapon.
Yeah, Spartan, what are your thoughts since you guys are getting all the roles that I desire?
Yeah, I know. It's like the only weapon that is. It's by far the most dropped weapon for me so far. Surprisingly enough,
I think the fusion is for me, interestingly enough, but I don't have any. Perfect
I've only
roles.
gotten one to drop for me so far, and only one of the breach lane grenade launcher. But yeah, I've got the Cascade Point Bait and Switch. I also, the other one I want to try is Envious Arsenal Bait and Switch because they just synergize so well. That role makes a lot of sense for long damage phases.
Yeah.
Because you empty the entire mag, which is like 8, I think, with a backup mag mod, which is a lot for a heavy GL. So in a longer damage phase, you'll empty the whole mag, then reproc bait and switch, and when you swap back to your heavy GL, it'll reload it. So, but the Cascade Point is great for shorter damage phases because, like you said, you proc in the time you're procking bait and switch, you also proc Cascade Point, and then you just unload the entire mag in a quarter of the time. that it would normally take. Yeah, that's pretty much the weapon that's been in my heavy slot since I got it. So
Yeah,
it's
same.
It feels pretty good.
Shout out to Dimensional Hypertrochoid, the heavy waveframe Stasis GL from Neomuna, getting its flowers for once in the heavy slot. But in the second encounter, where we go and suppress the big boy servitor and break it down into the 10 smaller boys. Just, for anyone who might be struggling or not understanding, comprehending exactly what's happening there, you are doing damage across multiple enemies, which is why if you're just firing at one, you are doing 1/9 or 1/10 of the damage that you could be. So if you are applying damage to as many as possible, that's how you get real big chunks. That's why Stasis Titan with the heavy slams is going so hard. That's why Nova bombs that can spread out wide. That's why something like a Parasite that goes in and just blows up on anything that's in the vicinity goes so hard. So just, if you're struggling, if you're trying that second boss and you're like, man, this is taking a lot longer than, videos I'm seeing online or I'm hearing people do, try to change damage. It's not something where you want to use something precision or anything of that sort. Yeah. You want to spread damage across a lot of enemies at that point. So I do of this GL here, I do have an Envious Arsenal Explosive Light. So they don't exactly synergize, perfectly, but it's something that, still feels good. They're good perks, kind of plays along with, kind of go from there.
Yeah. And I mean, in some ways I prefer Explosive Light to Bait and Switch. I know Bait and Switch is technically better, but it's kind of nice to just shoot the gun.
Yep. Yeah, I completely agree with that.
For any of our console or controller playing brethren out there, go Explosive Light. Bait and Switch is not worth it. It is not that much of a difference. Get all the orbs. Just make sure you prep it ahead of time. Go in, have an easy damage phase, be in the top part of that damage scoreboard. Just every time. So. Well, boys, that's a good conversation on the loot that's dropping. I'm going to continue to run it. And like I said, I'm going to be thrilled every time it drops. I think I only need the chest piece for the hunter. And that's the only piece of armor other than the class items. Obviously, those are through specifically that secret chest. I have not gone in and done those. Spartan, we need to do those soon. We were talking about that the other day. And then I just wanted to kind of close out tonight with our final topic. Just kind of want to get your general thoughts and feelings for the game in general. Luke, you had kind of mentioned earlier talking about, that post Final Shape come down. Obviously there were the layoffs last November, things coming in, and then there were layoffs again about a month and a half after the Final Shape came out. And, there's a lot of information that's come out from the studio, from people that were let go, things of that sort, that basically said that this was already long, this was already in writing, essentially. There's nothing really that the Final Shape could have done to prevent this other than becoming the biggest game in the world. And we just know the nature of it. That's not how this works, right? Like that's not what was going to happen. It is unfortunate, obviously, but I think it left a lot of us feeling like so I'll just speak for myself, I guess. I won't speak for you guys. I'll let you guys speak in just a second on that. But for me, it led me in this kind of weird place, right? Because we have this awesome community here in our Discord server. We have, I've made a lot of friends doing this, found a lot of purpose in helping people do this. And I know at the end of the day, it's just a video game, right? But it's one of those things where it's also been a big part. During COVID, it was one of those things where that's where I really fell in love with raiding and helping people do a lot of that and kind of helping through some bad times and just having friends, at this point around the world. We have a whole cohort of people that have joined the server recently from South Africa. And we played a raid last night with Jenny she's down in Australia. And, we got these people all over the place now. And that's super cool to know we have that connection. So I guess coming out of the Final Shape, and seeing everything and in this post Final Shape lull that we were in, I was a little worried, right? I was just like, man, what's going to happen? What's the future look like? And I guess I mentioned on our last ForcedToPod episode, basically just saying if Bungie can continue to double down on raids and dungeons, the things that make give these huge boosts, right? These boosts to people coming back to the game, things of this sort. That bodes well for us, right? I mean, you guys did. You guys really didn't even interact with the seasonal content last season, but you were here day one, and we were hopping into contest mode on day one for the dungeon because of what that means. And so, I don't necessarily want to go too deep on all the layoff stuff, but like where are you guys at? What are your general feelings and stuff for the future of the game? Luke, I'll start with you.
So like I was kind of talking about in the beginning, I have a lot more hope for how the game's going to play out in the future. If, like you said, they keep on releasing these banger dungeons and raids and continue to do things like contest mode for dungeons, I think the health of the game, it stays up like a lot more than like at post Final Shape, where it was just like, well, what are we fighting now and where are we going? Like if I started playing Call of Duty after Final Shape, it's bad if I'm playing Call of Duty over Destiny. But also that was just like, I think I needed a break from the game a little bit. General thoughts like about this season and just like how I feel about the game. Like I said, I'm really happy with it. I've been having a lot of fun playing around with different builds in PvP, PvE, and I'm really excited for the next raid that they come out with, because I think they probably learned Salvation's Edge. It's their capstone, big, huge raid. If they have something a little more toned back, but with like cool mechanics like we got in this dungeon, it's going to be sick. It's going to be awesome. So very positive thoughts, having a lot of fun with it. And this is a random one, but I will say Still Hunt and Celestial Nighthawk on Hunter with explosive light rocket launcher still goes absolutely hard, even though they nerfed it. Sure. And it's still really fun. But that's everything I have to say about it.
That's cool. Spartan, how you feeling? What are your general thoughts and feelings for the future? Are you feeling as hopeful or where are you sitting?
Yeah, pretty similar. I feel like in general, I feel like the game is in a pretty good spot at the moment. I haven't played enough PvP to really know how that is feeling at the moment. Aside from the fact that prismatic hunters can go jump off a cliff or whatever, which I think that's a pretty common. Yeah, right. How dare you? No, I think that's a pretty common sentiment, that they're a little overtuned. But generally speaking, I haven't played enough PvP to tell. And it's always been my opinion that the in between periods, PvP is what keeps a lot of people coming back, because it's a much easier, repeatable, sort of engaging content. Whereas like strikes and gambit, not so much, just in general. So I feel like that's important, but generally I feel like the game's in a pretty good spot. Cautiously optimistic, I guess I would call it. I always try to keep a little bit of pessimism in there, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word, but
we've been
just
hurt
because,
too much.
I just know how the video game industry can be. So it just, we'll see. But yeah, I agree. I think if they keep in the direction that this dungeon showed that they're going, in terms of raids, I'm really looking forward to the next one. The raids and dungeons will always be the thing that gets me the most interested in the game. In between, I'll play PvP and stuff, but it's not like I'm on every single day. Like, yes, I want to play. It's more like Friday evening, like I'll get on and play some PvP with people, and then not play again for a few days, right? So Yeah, I'm feeling good right now, I think.
Yeah, I'm kind of in a similar place, right? Like I'm playing less Destiny right now than I ever have. I guess let me back off since COVID, really. Like, there's at times have been stints and things, but I'm hopping on typically, maybe to help. When someone drops in chat that they're looking to run something, things of that sort, I'll hop on for a second. But I'm not lingering. I'm not just sitting around. I'm not just running around exploring the Tangled Shore, as Luke used to catch me
I
all the
was
time.
just gonna say,
Just
Yeah.
Tangled
just
Shore.
on the Tangled Shore all the time. I
Oh
just love
man,
it, man. I just love the vibe of it, and I wish they bring it back as like a full. I just wish they bring it back. I think it was great. So,
Yeah.
it is nice. I like the aesthetic of everything for the Tangled Shore, and it just was my favorite place to go farm some bounties up when I needed to.
I mean
But
they brought Spider back, so
they did,
who knows?
Yeah.
and they brought back the Gambit map in the form of an onslaught map, which is sick. And so that's one thing we haven't talked about either. And there's a lot of seasonal weapons, things of that sort. I really haven't dove into a whole lot because we got so quickly into the dungeon. But I am looking for, my general vibes are optimistic. I think that they're going to continue to iterate, right? Because they have to. Marathon's not out. I know that there have been a lot of creators, different people who were, sent out to Bungie HQ to see it, and I'm always a little jaded by the whole like. Anytime you would see on Twitter, like everyone tweeting like Bungie, like in all caps and stuff like that, it kind of comes off. Those same people that are doing that are the ones that are getting fired after being shown Pete Parsons' car collection. So feels a little bad. So I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna take it with a grain of salt, things of that sort. And the same people that are the biggest critics of Bungie and things they're doing are also the people who are, super excited to go out and see things behind closed doors and just gush about it. So I'm not saying that I wouldn't immediately jump on it, an opportunity to do that. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm just saying, take it with a grain of salt, everything. And I think it is fine if you find yourself burnt out or you find yourself in a place where you're like, you know what, I don't necessarily want to play Destiny right now, or this season, the vibe of this isn't for me. Go play something else, or just go touch
Yeah.
grass.
I mean,
Go do
that's
something outside, anything of that sort.
Yep. Yeah, right. I mean, that's
Go,
been my experience with Destiny 2 just in general. I mean, the multiple times throughout my time playing it, I've just not played for months to a year even.
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Just, like you said, if you're feeling burnout, go play Call of Duty or whatever. Like, feel free to do something else. And then, you get that itch again, then they launch a new dungeon and you're like, "Damn it, now I'm back in."
yeah. I mean, I
You
think
know?
it's the healthiest way to play Destiny 2 is to not force
Yeah.
yourself to play it. If you're having fun with
Yeah.
it, play it. If you're not, play something else. Or like Zach said, go touch grass or watch a movie or something like that.
And I make my own mini games with it, right? Like, so there's a lot of people who don't, they just surely don't care one bit about trying to help people through stuff and things of that sort. And so I'm at the point now where I remember a very explicit time, and shout out to Grusty. He's one of my oldest Destiny buds. He's in the clan. We used to play. He's literally been my oldest Destiny friend. We've played since I was way back on Xbox before Shadowkeep even came out, and I remember running stuff with him, and I was so completionist mindset. And I remember explicitly, like, honestly, just him being so down to run whatever I wanted to, and I wasn't given as much time. And I felt bad about that many times over the past, that I think like now I find like such a because at that point in time I was playing very little, right? So it just kind of hop on, and I think he was playing more at the time, so he had more, a bit more free time to maybe knock stuff out. And I was like, hey, can we do my thing, since it takes more than one person to do it or whatever. So I find I say that I kind of hold that memory near and dear, because now I'm at a place where I don't care about as many of the titles, things of that sort, as I used to, things of that sort. But there's things that people do care about, and I make my own mini game by helping people accomplish the things they care about. And whatever comes of it, right? Like at the end of the day, I don't care if I get the exact perfect roll of the 40th grenade launcher, right? Like I went and played and got edge transit and got perfect rolls of those guns, perfect of what you could do. And so the difference between that and chill inhibitor at the end of the day is very little. Now, the last thing I will say that has me hopeful, and I'm hoping that Bungie continues to head this way, I would enjoy to see less and less crafting. This is just myself, and that might be a hot take. I love the fact that this season they said, you know what? We're going to do less craftable weapons. We're going to see what the loot grind looks like. I think for seasonal weapons, I would be okay with more of those being craftable, things of that sort. But as someone who's sitting here now, Garden of Salvation, obviously those are brand new. It's only been a couple of weeks. I don't have those weapons yet. I have every other craftable or every other pattern in the game. And yes, it's nice sometimes when a random weapon like the stasis heavy GL, wave frame comes out and it's like, oh yeah, I have that, and just pull it out and do whatever and be able to do that. But as soon as crafting was implemented, and this is a whole different podcast conversation, so I don't want to get too deep on this subject, but I do feel strongly that it completely diminished the reason to go back and run. Every week I was running each of the raids on 3 characters every single week because I was just like, I don't know what I'll get. Like I might get all armor and yeah, that sucks, but I may get this weapon and who knows what I'm going to get on X and the role that's on there. And so for the dungeon, yeah, and I know dungeons haven't been craftable other than when they reprise some of the old weapons from Menagerie, things of that sort. They've always been random rolls, so you're going through doing this and things of that sort. But with this now, if they continue to juice the loot pools of these weapons, it brings me to a place where I get a VS Velocity Baton with attrition orbs on it, but it also has, maybe in the first column, it has what's that? What's the perk we were talking about earlier? Yeah, Slick Draw. Thank you. A Slick Draw attrition orbs. Well, I'm gonna give it a shot because it has attrition orbs, and that's the main thing I want on it. And I know that Slick Draw, I don't necessarily have to have that. I don't necessarily have to have the target acquisition from it. So it's just something where when you get the random rolls, it's exactly that. It's random. You don't know what's going to feel good. It may feel terrible, and you're like, okay, I need to go do something else, and that may turn some people off. But I feel very strongly for the future of the game that they need to draw a line in the sand, and they need to internally get their communication or craft communication that they can give to the community and say, hey, this is what's going to be craftable. This is what you can expect to have crafted patterns on because we're seeing the data on this, right? And who knows? Who knows what will happen? I mean, they've changed thoughts. They've reverted. They've sunset our weapons and then told us for years that they weren't going to be unsunset, and then they unsunset them again. Who knows where that's going to come down? But I'm feeling overall my general thoughts for the future. I'm feeling hopeful. Even if it's just from a perspective of, okay, when they do their dungeon or their raid for the year, things of that sort, hop back into it. And if not, just stay busy. So did you guys have any last closing thoughts you wanted to get out, things you had on the mind as we wrap up for tonight?
This is kind of speaking to your point, but all I'll say is I think for me and Spartan, I know that trying to get the perfect rows kept us playing PvP for a very long time. And when probably if that chase didn't exist, we wouldn't be playing comp. So having something that's not craftable to chase really is, I don't know, it makes the game feel so much more special when you do get that drop as opposed to getting a red border. So 100% agree with you on that, but that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. No, I agree. about the crafting, yeah, I think this season is better balanced in terms of what is and isn't. I've said it before, just like when we're playing the game and stuff. I miss the rarity of exotics, for example.
Mm-hmm.
It's another example of that. And again, like you said, whole other topic, but I like having that chase because, like you said with comp and getting the rose, like keeps you invested. Like, dang it,
Yeah.
it's one perk off.
I got Vorpal weapon.
I need to get the good one.
Week.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Always Vorpal.
But yeah,
Reload
no,
map.
I think the state of the game is pretty good. I've enjoyed this season, like you pointed out, Sax. I played the first 2 missions of the seasonal content last season and just didn't play anymore. And I feel like this season, at least so far, again, it's not very long into the season yet, but I've enjoyed it more this season so far. So, if they continue the upward trend, that's looking good. So,
well, guys, I do appreciate your time. I appreciate you guys hopping on here. So, wanted to, obviously, in the spirit of keeping things timely and doing that and talking about the things we want to talk about. So, this kind of checked all the boxes for us. So when I brought it up to Nick and Walker, they're like, yeah, let's do it. Walker's traveling. He's out. He was posting pictures of him out in the wilderness, as that is his favorite place to be. So he also hopped in for a little bit for the contest mode. However, he's been dialed back on Destiny quite significantly, which again, can't blame anyone for wanting to do that or wanting to do something else with their time, things of that sort. So he was not able to, nor was he really that in touch to hop on tonight. So I do appreciate you guys being this. Once again, this has been God Roll Radio, a little offshoot podcast of the ForcedToPod, another podcast from ForcedToWipe Productions. And we appreciate your guys' time. If you're still with us, not sure why, but thank you very much. And we hope you guys have a great night. Peace.